It's the Law.
Welcome to It's the Law, a program produced and presented by the Guyana Association of Women Lawyers. On this program, we're given an in-depth look at Guyana's laws. This week, we continue to hear from Diane Woolford.
Good afternoon. My name is Diane Woolford and I'm a member of the Guyana Association of Women Lawyers. And as part of our ongoing legal series, I will present on the topic of maintenance. As part of my presentation, I will give you a brief overview of the concept of maintenance in law. I will identify what the types of legislation that governs the area, and I will also identify the legal requirements as set out in law. I'll finally conclude by stating the law's position on a person or our partner, for instance, a father who denies paternity of the child. So let's begin. Maintenance is the obligation to provide another person with housing, food, clothing, education, and medical care, or with money to obtain them. The law imposes on you or on the party a duty to maintain your children, your parents, your grandparents, and in some situations, a husband or a wife. The laws of Guyana governing this area of law are the Maintenance Act, as well as the Custody, Contact, Guardianship, and Maintenance Act. Now, the Maintenance Act provides that you must maintain your children until they are 16 years old, the children of your wife or husband who live with you until they are 16 years old, your grandchildren until they are 16 years old, your parents and grandparents if they are unable to maintain themselves, your husband or wife if they are in a government hospital or home for destitute persons. Now, the legal rules regarding maintenance are set out in the Custody, Contact, Guardianship, and Maintenance Act. Sets out that a person, whether a man or a woman, has a duty to maintain his or her own child, a child of his or her legal or common law spouse who, though born prior to the marriage or prior to a union or cohabitation, has been living with them as a member of the family, or a child who is treated as a child of the family. Now, the law requires that a person who has these responsibilities must fulfill their legal duty. And so what happens in the instance where a parent or a party fails to maintain his or her own child? Well, from the onset, it must be noted that it is an offense to refuse or neglect to maintain a child. A person can be fined and sentenced in accordance with the rules of court and in accordance with the legal case as set out before the judge or magistrate. And where a parent fails to financially provide for a child, the child or the person with whom the child lives may apply to the magistrate's court closest to where that child or person lives for a maintenance order. The defaulting parent, that is the party who fails to pay the maintenance, will then be summoned to appear before the magistrate court, or in some instances, that party may be arrested. And so now that we've covered what maintenance is, who the law provides for, and the types of legislation that governs this area, we'll conclude our discussion by highlighting some of the options where a father denies paternity of a child. A person who, or for instance the applicant who has noted that the father has denied paternity of the child, may have legal recourse to the court. They may make an application to the court, for instance the magistrate's court, and the court has several options. The first is that they may either request that the punitive father's name, that party may either request that where there's been a previous order of court regarding DNA, the court may make a maintenance order against the father in this regard. Where, for instance, the father has signed the birth certificate, the court may make maintenance order on the assumption that he is the father. And finally, the magistrate's court also has the legal authority to refer the matter to the Supreme Court for a declaration of paternity or non-paternity. And once that declaration or order has been made, then the magistrate's court, or in that case the Supreme Court, may make an order regarding maintenance for that child. And these orders may include either transfer of the property for the benefit of the child, a lump sum payment, or periodical payment as the court sees fit. So now that an order has been made, What is the respondent or what is the party expected to do? Well, the requirement ultimately is that a person who is required to pay maintenance in respect of a child has the legal obligation to do so, and he may make that payment to the collection officer at the court or to any other person that the court directs. The court ultimately has the power to ensure that the person not only maintains and follows their legal obligations, but where it becomes necessary to ensure that if a person against whom a maintenance order has made, that person, the order can be enforced against them.
On today's program, we had a brief overview of the concept of maintenance in the law, the types of legislation that governs that area, and the legal requirements as set out in the law. She also looked at the law's position on the denial of paternity of a child. This program, It's the Law, is produced and presented by the Guyana Association of Women Lawyers. The contents are not to be taken instead of legal advice.